So once again, thank you, Sumitji. So today we have questions about pineal gland, the Brahma's cave, and the cerebrospinal fluid, and the importance of the pineal gland in the spiritual world, because there is a lot of research going on. There is a lot of talk about the pineal gland and the spiritual experiences. So we want to know more about it from you as a medical professional, as well as a yogi. So can you shed some light on it, like how the pineal, where is the pineal gland, how it is important in the spiritual world, because we have seen a lot of references of it, and even the Harvard is doing a research on pineal gland and spiritual experiences.
Actually, I'm not much into association with the pineal gland, but this questions comes up a lot of time, in discussions. So see, we have to, again, as I said in my last lecture, that we have to go to the history of it, where exactly the association starts from. So the association starts from the Egyptians, when they talked about Pneuma experience into the brain. Actually, the association was not made. It was said that there is some kind of a gland there, some kind of which, is one with the spiritual experience. With period of time, I think it was Descartes who first made that association of spiritual world and the pineal gland. And eventually, slowly but surely, as it's, people started understanding its anatomy in the brain and associating with the Ajna Chakra or with different glands, it started gaining prominence. Eventually, it is one of the atrophic glands. It has got a lot of blood supply. It's one of the most vascular glands. And for a long time, its function was not known. Till eventually, they started understanding that it is when Descartes associated it with emotions and spiritual experiences, they said that even this gland being, in animals who experience the same, but they do not experience the same kind of emotion. So this association is wrong. So this was some kind of a refute to that theory was put. But eventually what happened is that as science, not until the earliest 20th century, when people started associating that gland with circadian rhythms to secrete melatonin. And this hormone is most of the time associated with, deep sleep, a sedative sleep. And it was said that, the people who are, if that melatonin is secreted more into the bloodstream, it gives you a spiritual experience. It is a very voluntary control that it takes you into a state of, sushupti or something like that. And eventually that is how, we can, when you concentrate on the Ajna Chakra, you make the secretion. But again, what happened? When I still remember talking with few people, maybe 6 months back, that a study was done where depressive people, or people who are acutely depressive and people who are normal, their melatonin secretion was noted. And it was surprisingly found that people who are most depressive, the melatonin is high. In fact, increase of melatonin should throw away your depression, should throw away your tendencies. So they said, this is something which is quite a finding. In normal people, it was not, but it was like substantially high. If it was like 4 and 5 in normal people, it was 150, 117, super depressive. And what happens is that this gland secretes melatonin in the night. It works on the ophthalmic pathway. And when you sleep, it gets a feedback into the brain to secrete melatonin. In the morning, as soon as the sun rises, the melatonin decreases. A very simple phenomenon is when you are jet lagged. I always use this feeling, कि क्या बोलते हैं, आत्मा उठनी चाहती है पर शरीर जगा रहता है. Body is holding you back, but the soul wants to get up. That is the kind of jet lag feeling. It is because of melatonin. So when you start getting that kind of a feeling, that kind of a in a very meditative state, it was associated something with the pineal gland. The question here is, when you asked about medical terminology and when you talk about yogic terminology, what happens in yogic terminology? A lot of time, how the activation of hormones comes is very important. Sometimes every gland has got a sympathetic and a parasympathetic innervations. So when you are in stress, certain things get secreted. When you are relaxed, certain things get secreted. The quotient of yogic breathing is to voluntarily control it and get everything in the parasympathetic when you are in the resting phase, to get all the kind of high activities done. So when those kind of an activities are activated through the yogic pathways, this all glandular formulation, whatever the glands are there, it could be adrenal glands. Some people associate the adrenal glands with one chakra, gonads with one chakra, thymus with one chakra, pituitary with another chakra. People do the meditation and associate certain glands also, the modern people. This comes from a lot of Buddhist practices, some Neo-Eastern practices where combination of Kundalini, people started understanding in the very neurochemical, neurohormonal pathways, and that is where the association of pineal gland comes. It is a very recessive gland. Its growth stops with age. I think so. Maybe after 40, it stops even growing, and because it got like a hornier structure, that the pineal gland is like there is one here, there is one here, and there is a, if you see the structure, there is a deep cleft in between. That cleft is directly proportional to the.
Should we keep a picture? Maybe I can share a picture of pineal gland if you want.
Yes, you can. It's fine, but if you can see, because if you should have that proper sagittal structure, but if you have a picture, then it will be like, it will have like this. The gland is like this, but the main function is that it got like two horns, like a stag, and in between there is a half chandra like recess in it. It lies directly below the third ventricle, and that third ventricle for the most time is understood as the Brahma's cave, where you have been right now, what you have been telling, but this is not like an actual picture, so you have to get a very sagittal section of the pineal gland. But that above thing, where that small recess is there, is understood as the Brahma's cave, where actually this transference of what they say the soul rises. Now, this is a very analogous thing, means like people associated with this gland with the Ajna chakra, it lies there. Association is there. But when you go into the tantric forms, we have this quotient of several planes. There is a Sahasrara plane. Above the plane, there is another plane. So these planes are also understood in the Nath form of tantra. So eventually, what matters is that if you are associating your yogic practices with these glands and their secretions, that is one way to find it out. It is good for comparative studies. But eventually, yogic practices do not go in that. Of course, there are glandular secretions. Of course, there are neurohormonal pathways in it. But the way it is secreted, how exactly you make those secretions by activating the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system, that nuances are not shared. So that is the reason it is good association. But if you ask me, I do not much adhere to this kind of associations. But it has got its own history. A lot of people have associated the pineal gland because it lies straight in between the two eyes as the third eye. A lot of time concentrating on it gives you secretions of melatonin or the percussor to melatonin, which gives you the state of sushupti. It causes some kind of a feeling of being totally going into a trance, like your body is staying there, but your soul is leaving your body. Very much what I called about an acute jet lag, when you're sleeping, but actually you're not sleeping, or even you're on the chemicals like DMT, or those kind, when you're actually your body is resting, but you feel that you want to get up. And that kind of a feeling is normally associated when you concentrate on it. And so the associations I can understand, but actually these associations have come up much in the right from the philosopher Descartes, who first made these associations, but which was totally refuted because they said that they gave the quotient to males, animals, and humans, and the physiological function of the pineal gland was just known in the early 20th century. I might be a little bit wrong here in terms of the date, I don't remember, when the first time the percussor to melatonin was understood, and then melatonin was understood with the circadian rhythms, the biorhythms from the night to the day, and how exactly it fluctuates.
Okay. So can we associate any spiritual experiences to that, like people seeing light, like when they sit for meditation, people see some light?
It is very relative. I for one person might not, because spiritual experience is very very personal. We cannot sit in a boardroom and decide what is right and what is wrong. I can only talk about the path. I can only talk about what exactly we are looking to have. A lot of people do meditation, and the hormonal complexes, the cocktail of hormonal juices was come into your system, are though in quantification might be same or vary up and down, but their the nature of active and passive glands are depending by your birth. Some people are very emotional. They cry, on certain things. Some people are very strong. Some people, anger is their main quotient. They get very angry pretty soon. Anger. So every people have some defining cocktail hormonal movements which define their existence. So spiritual experience also comes in that way. If you're very angry, then your quotient of being a spiritual expression would be that you become very calm. You're not going to enhance your anger. If some people get very touchy, sensitive, they cry a lot of time, they fear a lot of things, then their spiritual experience is going to come from that portion, because they feel that as a thing which is overwhelming them. So in that process, what cocktail juices secrete into your system and how exactly neurohormonally they affect you, it cannot be quantified. Some people might see light, some people might get a throbbing pain, some people might just get a tingling sensation on their spine, like the Kundalini is rising. Some people might experience a lot of heat into the pelvic region. Some people might go into a trance. Some people might just go into some kind of a sleep pattern where they will just get up after 2 days. Some people will have some kind of visions. It all depends upon how active your brain has become and how exactly it is being accessed in a very synchronous manner. My question here is, voluntarily can you replicate it? Going into a trance can be a chance. It could be progressed by by some sadhana, by some tools, alchemy, mercury, cannabis, whatever you want to use. Some kind of a mantra, some kind of a deep meditation, but quantifyingly, how exactly are you controlling that experience? How exactly it is allowing you to forget that you exist in this decaying body, and how exactly this concept of what we tell in the Purans, it is given, like everything starts from ashes. The bhasma is the mruta, or what you say, the dead form of all creations. Once you become bhasmibhut, niruttha bhasmibhut, it is there is nothing more to gain from it. The ash is the final dissolution. There is nothing more you can create. Only from there creation starts. So similarly, that concept happens is that when you reach that point, how exactly you see the manifestation and how exactly that becomes apparent to you on a very personal level it is very much important. And as far as you said, some people see light, some people see red light, some people get very scared of the experience, some people get post experiences, some people get, go into that trance for a period of 6 days, 7 days. All these things have been noted down, and we cannot deny them, or we cannot make them as a reference point. Okay, this is what is seen, so you will also see that. So therefore, in Vedic sciences and this yogic sciences, a method has been given. A method has been given is to quantify where exactly you're going, how you can quantify an experience, how you can reach a state where only you are manifested, the and the her, which is, joined together, and how exactly, this state manifests within you, and then nothing else is manifesting around you. In that state, the entire brain activity, because we're talking about brain and all, it goes into a completely active state, where all the corpus callosum, all your subarachnoid space, wherever you can see, because you're talking anatomy, they are totally being accessible to you. It's so much accessible that now part of the brain, no linearity exists. It becomes like an all-encompassing experience. A lot of time, our knowledge is very linear. Things which you do not understand or we cannot quantify, we either refute. The whole concept of existence comes from refutal. The moment you are born and you're going into some things, if things like, extrasensory perceptions, spirits, most of the people will refute it. They will say this doesn't exist. If some people goes into some shastra and talks about daityas, asurs, devs, we either treat it as a mythology or will become overwhelmed with them. But we won't accept their existence. Some people who accept their existence become so much one with them that they say that, no, this is what is happening. You know, if some people who believe in possessions and spirits, then if anything bad is happening, they'll say this is happening. And what exactly the point I'm trying to make here, that these experiences are not any much different from the experiences what you're talking about, seeing the light and all. The whole concept here is you are accessing a part of your brain or the entire brain in a very non-linear way. There is no specificity to it. You arrive there by a reason, but you are accessing the brain. And whatever things facilitate you, whether it could be pineal gland meditation, it could be Kundalini meditation, it could be Granthi meditation, chakra meditation, or even basic following your dincharya and becoming aware of the breath and slowly cutting off your associations with the society. You know, that also what exactly is happening is that you are getting voluntary control over your hormones. Because a lot of people talk of adrenal as a swadhisthana, you know, gonadal as muladhar, or vice versa, I'm not remembering it. So what they are trying to tell you or implement here is that you are trying to get complete control over these hormonal complexes. And what happens is that whenever you have a response which is not in your control, you know that you don't have to care for your children because that is an attachment. But even if you care for your children, that is a hormonal response which is not in your control. You can say that I have disattached from them, but internally you're still there. Then mind is still there. So that hormonal, that chakra which controls those hormonal plexuses is not voluntarily into your control, or the cocktail which is secreting into your system is not controlled. So the moment you start getting complete control over all these complexes, what you can relate with chakras, then eventually you reach this final chakra where this, even if, let us say for argument's sake, this melatonin is secreted, it will give you a complete experience. See, it is never about one hormone. For example, if I'm secreting something called as a dopamine, which is a very relaxing or whatever hormone it is, but its action is always associated with what other cocktails are happening into your system. So if you have voluntary control over entire system, your body is completely relaxed, it is completely detached, you are into a state where you are no one's wife, no one's mother. And then when that pineal gland or whatever for argument's sake we say is activated, then eventually you'll get a very all-encompassing experience with your brain's nerves are not, are not, we call the word as stasis, are not locked into a particular experience. You know, you have got a lot of frustration in your job and you go and start doing some tapasya and suddenly you feel a light. But what happens the moment you go and that subconscious attachment to that hormonal complex is there, then whatever secretes into your system doesn't give you an all-encompassing, voluntarily controllable experience. Of course, you might get an experience for the first time. No, whenever you're in stress and you'll do some meditation, sometimes you'll wow. Now, next time when you will go, it will become more difficult for you to get into that state. You'll have to really practice very hard to get into that state. Sometimes you'll go spontaneous, but you know, you'll start searching for that state. And what this Shastra tells you that there is no quantification of any state. Let us say you see a light into your meditation, deep meditation, and you say, okay, I have to see this. The moment you attach yourself to that experience, that this is how, an all-encompassing looks, your brain, that is what we call as Maya, your brain suddenly, readjusts itself to always give you that experience. It is like when you go and eat a dish in a hotel, you are totally surprised. You don't know what you have to eat, you are hungry. You go to a hotel, you eat something. You say, wow, this tastes overwhelming. Then each time you go to that hotel, your brain is already creating that experience for you. So however an encompassing experience might be for the first time, the next time, the moment you hold on to that experience, it becomes a limited experience. And the all-encompassness of the brain goes up. So here we have to understand that whatever things we say about light, prakash, shitalta on the Sushumna, or whatever experiences we take, how exactly are we quantifying and living in that experience in a day-to-day? Is it only coming when you are going into a particular meditative state, or that experience is with you in all the states? Once it is in all the states, and that means that all parts of your brain synchronously have been activated. And the only thing happens is to be aware of the state and keep working hard to go into that state. So these are just little bit of pointers with different kind of sansari people or yogic people use. Some people stay away from the stimulus because they don't want to go into that kind of a thing. Some people feel if those kind of stimuluses are not there, then I'm not secreting or not stimulating all my chakras. And this is a conflict. I won't say a conflict. These are different perceptions which make this kind of a practices, so much more rich.
So these Nath Panthis or some other Aghori sadhus and all, they use these psychedelic substances like marijuana and all. So their purpose is to get into that higher state all the time. That's the question was asked by one of our participants. So I'm just putting that in front of you.
That is what people think, and that is what we are made to think. But it is not that. Sometimes what happens, marijuana, alchemy, or certain psychedelic drugs, they fast track you into a particular state because you can control that state. A lot of time when you do a psychedelic, the line between use and abuse is very thin. That is the reason, when I did this book on whiskey or these lectures on whiskey, the whole concept was to understand it. Because we have a very conservative way to look towards certain things, alcohol, psychedelics. Some people think they are just, they are not for the sattvic people. But eventually, the Hatha Yogi is an eternal scientist. He is a scientist who wants to explore his life in a very quantifiable way. And there is no quotient of facts, or there is no quotient of past, present, and future. There are certain fundamentals. And those fundamentals are explored upon, are understood upon through this factory, through this laboratory, which is the body, in which resides the prana. So when you take certain psychedelics, everything has got a pancha mahabhotik and ethereal value. Nothing is outside the gunas, nothing is outside the rasvirya vipaka, nothing is outside the vayus. So when they start understanding this kind of properties in certain plants, certain things, they do not distinguish themselves between food and psychedelic. There are certain sadhus who just feed off sunlight. There are certain sadhus who take psychedelics to have a complete control over your brain, because when you take a psychedelic, your brain is not in your control. But what is the quotient? Whenever you take a psychedelic in a purified form, bhang or marijuana is called as an upavish in Ayurveda. Upavish means it has to be purified. So when you purified it in cow's ghee and you eat it, what happens? It acts as medicine. In an unpurified way, it acts as poison. But because Lord Shankar, Lord Shiv, Nilkanta took the halal, he took the poison, what happened? Poison is called as ashukari. Ashukari means quick acting. So when it is quick acting, what happens is that something which acts quick doesn't give you time to think. More than the thing getting overwhelmed by you, you get overwhelmed by it. You suddenly lose consciousness. You see in the second stage, third stage of alcoholism, people talk immoral things, do all kind of things. A lot of people lose their control over urine and fecus. All these things happen. So what is happening? It is causing shitilta, complete disorientation of your system. And the aghor, the people who do tapasya, want complete control and disorientation. In complete darkness, who dispels the darkness is an aghor. So it is not necessary that every aghor does this. It's not necessary that every Nas Sampradaya employs it. But some people who do it, a thought process is to get complete control over this vish and upavish. And that is how you start controlling the plexuses of your system, because unless and until you know that they are activated, how will you control them? If you are staying in your reservations of sattvic food, morality, you are not testing your hormonal impulses. You have created an intellectual concept of expansion. An intellectual concept of expansion cannot be in adherence to your body. Intellectual concept of expansion must start with disdain towards the body and acceptance towards something which is running the body. And we all start with linear complexes in life. In the family you are born, the things you are do, you can call it as theory of karma or whatever, but choice is always eternal, because we are unable to see the fruits, we are unable to see the prayojan. So you have to start doing things till an awareness comes that why are you doing an action? That action acts only through your karmendriya and jnanendriyas. They are served by your tanmatras, the small senses. Who is the bhokta? Who is the coordination? The man, ubhaya indra, what is called. So it is neither karmendriya, it is also karmendriya, it is also jnanendriya, but it gets corrupted. Who is the bhokta? Bhokta is the atma, the self. Then only the self exists. And when that self is only gunamay. If you look at certain Sankhya philosophy or whatever, we are not talking about other things. therefore the Darshan Shastra becomes very important. They are Gunmay. They only have properties. They can only experience, but they cannot act. So when you only go into the experience and go away from the action, then that experience becomes all fulfilling. You become Atma. You become one with the soul, one with the jiv. And then you start understanding from its perspective where it is causing the spanda, where it is causing the breath, where it is causing secretion of the chakras, what expansiveness you get. So, this is how exactly this thought process is understood through different sects, depending upon how they are trained. What is their method of arriving at point? There are certain sects like Comfort Yogis, one step below the Nath Yogis. So, Comfort Yogis are one who will have a pier's head. Nath Yogi will more than that. They will have total something into the ears. Aghor is the first stage. They all belong to the same sect, but Aghor is the first sect because they don't pierce their ears most of the times. The comfort will pierce. So this is there, but it is one stage of refinement. If you really go into the sampradayas, of course, as the sampradayas have evolved, every school of thought has evolved into its own thing. But unless and until we go and we study with them, we won't know it. Intellectually, by reading books or talking with someone, we only get one part of the picture. That is good for debate. No. This point you're talking good about Aghor, this point I have not seen. But that doesn't make a difference. When you talk about practices, when you talk about alchemy, marijuana, or any other kind of practices which occur in different kind of, the whole prayojan here is to understand that control over that experience with that jiv, that soul is getting. So you cannot get the experience of the soul from an alternate point of view because you can't understand it. The whole concept is to be one with the soul and through it experiences, understand what the experience is, the Jnanendriya and the Karmendriya are given to. So this is a little bit of a tricky concept, but only by application in day-to-day life we can cut through it. And this is why certain tools like marijuana, alchemy, certain you might see tantric forms of herbs are used. Again here, as I said last lecture, that bhukti and mukti. So some people only practice for mukti. So for them, a lot of these things are not required. Some people practice for bhukti through mukti. Means they want to first enjoy the everything of the society in a very all-encompassing way, and through it, cut through it. And so these people employ this kind of psychedelics and all to first understand bhukti from a controllable point of view, and through it enhance mukti. And some people are only engrossed in siddhis and bhuktis, where the shat karmas come, uchchatan, vashikaran, maran, jaran, where you are involved in certain powers. Then this kind of herbs are used for those kind of prayojan. So eventually the prayojan can be anything. What is the focus is important.
What you're saying is some people, they use the marijuana or other things first to get away. I mean, first to experience how they work on you, like how they make you shithil, relax. And then you get the control over your body or...
See, I can speak for myself, when I research with, single malts of whiskey, when I wrote that book, the whole quotient was to understand whatever the reason was of starting it in that process. The whole quotient is to understand the line between use and abuse. Can you make, because in Ayurveda, Vedic Shastra, it is written, na jagat vayam anaushadam. There is nothing in this world which is not a medicine. That holds true in the opposite way. No medicine in the world, there is no medicine in the world which cannot act as a poison. So it is viprit. It is not that one is true, so another is false. So the line is always between use and abuse. When you say ashukari things like marijuana, alcohol, they are quick acting onto your system. It is like a complete overwhelm of your system where slowly you're getting complete access to certain parts of your brain, where you start doing things which you won't do in a normal life. If you really observe people who are drinking, they might not do things what they are doing in their normal life when they are drinking. They'll speak or they'll sing, because that fear goes away. You access certain part of your brain. There is no inhibition before expansion. You're just doing it. You take on challenges. You'll do some acts of stupidity or braveness, or whatever it might be. So what exactly on a technical point it is happening? These things are letting you access different portions of your brain and chakric complexes, if you can see it like that. And so this thing was understood. Why mercury and everything started coming into medicine? Mercury is the biggest poison. But it first started with Loha Veda. So Loha Ved started when to convert base metals to gold. And in that process, they understood Deha Ved. Deha Ved means is as mercury can pierce through metals and reform it to something pure. Why can't it pierce through the body and refine it to something more stabilized? So the Siddhas used mercury for Loha Ved. Deha Ved, sorry, to purify it, to make it into a point where the body was understood as mercury. The quotient comes as Jaran, Maran, Charan. The quotient is to make mercury so stable that even if you give it anything, it will eat it, but its weight won't increase. Even if you take out something from mercury, its weight will still remain the same. So when your body becomes like that, and whenever you eat, your weight remains the same, your body mass remains the same. Whenever you don't eat also, your body mass remains the same. Then your every quotient of pran is getting absorbed and stored in a much better way. Nothing is going to waste. And only then and then when this complete quotient of pran you have got to a lot of practices, then only you can transcend it. So now to achieve this state without mercury, you have to go through a lot of tap, like Vishwamitra, Brahmacharya, this, to go and regain your orgasmic power. We are not talking about sexual power, you are talking about orgasmic power, the creative power which is within you. How exactly you can retrograde it, how exactly that creative power can be portioned to each and every cell into your body. Because Shukra Dhatu is understood as a Dhatu of reproduction. So whenever it goes into every cell, it is going to recreate. It is going to give that push of new creation. It is going to slowly throw away all the excretions. Till a point comes that no excretion is created. Then Shukra Dhatu turns into Oj. Because Oj has got no excretions. So there is one Somatmak Oj, there is one Agnayatmak Oj. So these are separate concepts which were given to different lineages. The point I'm trying to make here is that we cannot take all these concepts and say I am doing Oj practice, I am doing pineal gland practice, I am doing Kundalini practice. It has to come with a base. It has to come at the concept of some metaphysics of what exactly is the point where you are going to reach. And then all these practices can be adjuvant depending upon the social, moral, geographical locations you all belong. So not everybody can take marijuana and do a practice just because you have marijuana, because it has to be picked up at a particular time. That you have to prepare your body first to intake that marijuana. You should know its ill effects because it is upavish. So what we can give you transcendence can also cause you a patan. So you should know how much molecular weight you can take inside when you're taking mercury. What is your molecular quotient? How exactly that osmotic balance is. Because if it is not piercing, if it is not doing the deha weight, then it is going to retain into your system, causing toxicity of the lungs. So it is not just a mercury. Therefore, we oblate, venerate to Parat Shivling. We use this Vijaya, Bhanga as Divya medicines. Why? Because you have to create a system to imbibe it into your system for spiritual gains. When you talk of the word spiritual gain, it is transcending the body. It is making your vehicle so stable that the Atma within it, the Jiva within it, is complete Bhokta, Sampurna Bhokta and Sampurna Mukta. So it is in dual state of Bhukti and Mukti. The choice is its. So some people who are Avadhuts, they attain this position. So they are very far and less like those people. You really have to be into their presence to understand how exactly it is. We have got a lot of thought like Trailanga Swami, Neem Karoli Baba, a lot of people, Siddharths are there. If we really understand, we'll understand the concept of what Avadhut is. Some people, just transcend the bhukti. They get control over the Pancha Mahabhuts. They can feed off sunlight, they can feed off leaves. Some people just go into a complete, they have control over Dhyan Dharana. They can go into a concept of Savikalpa Samadhi a lot of time. So it doesn't matter if they go into that position they can reabsorb their food materials and all. But it all comes with a very strong tapa and concept. And that concept has to be followed slowly but surely by a householder. The experience could be anything, the tools you use could be anything. Therefore, that is the beauty of this Shastra, that we have so many streams, so many lineages, so many concepts, depending upon the geographical location. So understand everything was evolved from a geographical need. Today we say, wow, you can go and sit into cold water and do that. But earlier it was a necessity. Once you go into the mountains, you travel, like I did this Sahasratal trek. It was an old pilgrimage route for Kedarnath, Badrinath. Now roads have become. But first from Karnaprayag, there was no road. So people used to travel 150 kilometers to reach Badrinath and Kedarnath. That was an old route which I mapped. Now it has become defunct. But just understand the time when people used to go there. We say, when you're going to a Chardham Yatra, that means people used to say, so now he has gone, so they are not going to come back. You know, in earlier times it was said, they are going for Yatra means Kailashvasi, gone. So that was how much that when you go into the geographical condition, those who could adapt, those whose tapa was very strong, those whose fervor was very strong, could only evolve. Today it becomes very easy for us to, you know, in the age of internet, reading books, sitting in the comfort of our home, you know, leading our life, you know, doing 2-3 things when we, you know, tell our children or tell our husband or wife, you know, I'm detached. We feel that we have transcended life. But whole quotient is this continuous contemplation of these vasanas which subconsciously tickle your mind. And when you start understanding this and you transcend the chakras and you first pierce the Brahma Granthi, the first step is Brahma Granthi. When you pierce, only then these things come into quotient. Till the Brahma Granthi is pierced, you know, these things do not matter. You know, they will not give you any benefit.
Concept of Brahma's cave, you said it came from Buddhism. How did, I mean, this is the Brahma Gufa, right? It's called in Hindi Brahma Gufa. Or is it the same as the Brahma Randhra? Or, you know?
No, see, Brahma Randhra is a small opening, you know.
Randhra is the opening and cave is the...
Brahma Gufa is like a space because once you start doing the pineal gland, people started doing the anatomy of the brain. So 2 ventricles, 3rd ventricle, 4th ventricle.
Right.
This 3rd ventricle, if you see, it was directly over the pineal gland. So it started with Descartes, who said that there is a space over the pineal gland where exchange of spirits occur. There is a space where you connect with the spiritual world. And this concept was taken for, if you just read the history of pineal gland, I have not read a little bit what I understand from memory. I'm telling you, but you can look up. The whole concept started from there. And when you're looking at something to prove something, then you'll actually find something. You know, this is how concepts in spirituality occur. If I tell you that, okay, here is a gland, it does this. And if you actually try to find an association, you will find it. But that doesn't mean that makes it right. So tomorrow I'll say, see, you know, when I do something, adrenal secretes cortisol, but when I do this, it secretes. And you'll do a study and actually find that thing happens. And say, see, I told you. But that doesn't make that concept right. Because you have to voluntarily do it. And there lies the difference between how exactly it happens. You know, for example, when you talk to certain students, we say that, you know, sexual experience is a sympathetic experience. Because for that, in a male or a woman, tightness of muscles and everything is required. But orgasmic urdhva retus is a parasympathetic, in a relaxed mode. You know, sympathetic, because in sympathetic you are increasing your blood flow, in parasympathetic stiffness. But when in a opposite occurs voluntarily, then what happens? It is going up. So it depends upon in which part you are doing it. For example, in certain practices, what we do, our exhale is longer than inhale. Why exhale is longer? Because we are increasing the carbon dioxide into the system. The more you increase the carbon dioxide into the system, you know, acidosis starts setting. You know, body is forced to take in oxygen. Why? Because the load becomes more. So if you see a lot of time when we alter our practices, now this is the things which won't be taught to you because you're not into those geographical conditions. But when I reduce my exhale in certain conditions, you know, that condition, I'm retaining that carbon dioxide into my system. Why I'm retaining? Because I'm getting a fit. Because that carbon dioxide, what is it? Is creating, it has got benefits. Carbon fixation occurs, a lot of sludging occurs into the system. Till a point, my body says that I have to release it. Now what we do, we hold our breath for long. And then we exhale out. But when you hold and you slowly you increase your exhale more than inhale, then eventually what happens, you know, it changes different complexes into your system. Sometimes when you inhale more slowly than exhale, it changes certain things into your system. How exactly you voluntarily control your hunger through either sympathetic or parasympathetic system? You are very stressed, you are very hungry. And you are hungry, but you are relaxed. You know, the hunger you are enjoying. Both acid is secreted, but one is giving you a different experience, one is giving you a different experience. And the yogis know to control it. Of course, they might not be talking in a technical terms. I am talking because our talks is on hormones and all. So I'm just giving you some parallels of what studies have been done. But actual ground level is that. And these things are not taught to us. These things we do not understand unless and until you study with someone in that geographical locations. Why? Because in the comforts of our house, these subconscious things do not matter. Everything is taken for granted. If you're in a house, you're going to get food, you're going to get a space, you will have, everything is so much scheduled into your system that your mind is not forced to think. There is no chaos. But when I suddenly take you to a forest where you'll say, wow, we have come to do, and you'll not sit here and I'm not going to come for 10 days. You do meditation. The first thing will happen where we'll take food, fear. All the chaos will start happening. You might be a very big meditator, but when you are suddenly put into a situation where chaos is happening, all your chakra, vakra, all your theories go for a toss. Because then, and that is what, was very important, the parasympathetic nervous system. You can voluntarily control that you are relaxed. That your body is totally in a relaxed state. It doesn't matter. You can go, you can trust your practice. That sympathetic tone is not coming into your system. The stress is not coming into your system. And those things, those yogis understood because they did not have a choice. They did not have cell phones. They did not have access to bank accounts. It was either do or die. People used to take yatras from Kedarnath to Badrinath by foot. I've seen when I went to Kirti Glacier and all, I've seen so many few sadhus, dead bodies inside the ice. Army people tell us. A lot of sadhus still take those journey, barefoot, minimal clothes. And that is what, that tells you to transcend the body. Now, does everyone has to do that? No. You can do it in the comfort of your home, as long as you don't find that comfort. As long as every time you tell yourself that I'm no one, I don't want to create any associations. I don't want to feel angry for someone. I don't want to feel happy for someone. I just want to be in my space. When I'm out of that space, I'm doing my duties. Can we develop that within us? And these things when start happening, then these concepts become much, much more profound. And that is where when you do these associations of Brahma's cave and all, these are very good points to tell, where is Sastra, where is Brahmarandra, or as I say, there is Jiva lies 13 angul beneath the Pran and the Apan. So you can say, I'll tell you many references which you said, but how will you quantify it? Because for that you should know your angul Praman, right? I cannot put 13 anguls into your navel and say it is here. It is your angul Praman. This is one angul. So as you grow, that Praman also grows. So you should be able to quantify it by logic. Earlier times, when the Sulva Sutras were there, the thread sutras were there. The Sulva Sutras mathematical application was obtained internally to understand it. Now those art is lost because we are not trained that way. But we can use these references with breath. You can count your breath. You can count your Nimesh, Unmesh, and then slowly you can arrive at it. But then if I'm telling these things, then what happens? It requires deep internal concentration. And whenever you concentrate, where will you concentrate? You won't concentrate down. You'll concentrate in your brain. Like if you concentrate, close your eyes, and your first focus will grow here. Your first focus won't grow down or to your heart. So therefore, these things, Ajna Chakra, something into the brain, void into the brain, these things which were made in the Hatiyuk Pradipika and everything was described in this anatomical form. People started associating with things when they started finding in dissections, when they started understanding the concepts of hormones, understanding the concepts of space, understanding the concept of how circulation takes place into the brain. And maybe those parallels might have been drawn from there. Influences of other Eastern philosophies, Buddhist philosophies, Tibet philosophies cannot be denied because our knowledge went to Nepal, from there came here. There were big universities in Takshila and Nalanda where there were a lot of storehouses of books, which are very close to the Nepal-India border. So we cannot deny the fact, that certain influences come, certain practices come. Of course, if you're a practitioner, I am a practitioner, and I come to you and you're looking for something, and I have a technique which can cut down your time, you're naturally going to imbibe it, right? You're naturally going to modify your technique to reach the goal. But if people only don't understand the thought process of why you modified the technique, they'll only associate with the technique. So that is the difference between Sampradaya and Shastra. So that documentation, that exchange modification was there because you modify for your own body. You modify after your own understanding. You will learn to lectures of 10 people, but you will associate it only 1 or 2 people. Does that mean the other people are not giving you good knowledge? They are. But sensually, from the 5 senses, you're associating with someone. So you imbibe those thought processes. And that is how Shastra got developed over a period of time. So I think a lot of people who talk about all these things or have confusion should first look up a little bit of history. I'm not saying all history is documented, but if you look in the right places, a lot of these doubts will get clear.
Yeah, no, I like to go into the history, and I have seen even in Vatican and all, they talk about this pine cone as a representation of pineal
pineal
gland.
word comes from pine.
Yeah, pine. It looks like a pine cone, and then there is a cerebrospinal fluid, which is that's where it is bathing in. So it's like in the cave there is water, and those kind of concepts are coming. So I read about it, but it's just intriguing that all these yogis, they have known this even before the science could find this out, like you said.
Concept of Kundalini also, because you talked about the CSF, those also are the concept a lot of people say. Because the CSF is something which goes into the brain, it also supplies your spinal cord.
Cerebrospinal fluid you are talking about.
Cerebrospinal fluid is there.
Yeah.
And see what happens is that it is a precursor of a lot of hormones. Whenever you have an increase, you find a little bit of oxytocin, little bit of progesterone. It supplies all the nervous plexuses. Mm-hmm. It goes and settles into the subarachnoid space. There is a concept called as CSF stasis. CSF stasis means when it is neither opening or going down, it remains there. So it causes health problems. So certain breathing techniques like long exhalations, certain positions, when you sit in a particular position and all the force, the movement occurs. And because it is supplying the entire spinal cord, people say the Sushumna, which is breathing there, the Kundalini, because some people etymologically call Kundalini separated as Kunda. Kunda means a well. A Kunda means, a pot of water, so they say it is bathing into the pot of water, and moment it rises, the water goes up, it bathes the spine, and then when you get complete control, you do the khechari, you drink the nectar, so nothing gets. So see, it is parallels for all this myth. Now, is it right or wrong? Is the CSF the holy marker? Who knows? We always talk about Lord Shiva, that the Ganga is going out. A lot of time, if you see the Buddhist analogies, this Buddhist, this protrusion you have, it is called as a CSF bulge. A lot of practitioners tell that when they do the lot of Kundalini CSF practices, they find some kind of a bulge here, like a soft bulge. You can also see the sulcus of the brain, the fissures of the brain, they are elastic, they are not joint. They can increase, they can decrease to accommodate the intracranial pressure. Because when there becomes a lot of intracranial pressure, the surface area increases. Some people get temple here because they do CSF things. The Buddhist things, as I told you, was that. Some people associate that Ganga, which is flowing from Lord Shiva's iconography, is nothing but this fluid which is oozing out. And when that thing starts happening, you transcend. So, I'm not saying that these analogies are wrong or right, or these things might not be happening. That is for the researchers to find out. The only thing I'm saying that it is a very voluntary experience. Because this thing is happening, if we can replicate it, structurally, are you going to get the same experience? No. So that is the difference between Asur and Devatas, right? Both in Vedas, if you say, both are equal, because both are, offsprings of Kashyap Rishi, Diti and Aditi. It is just that one is born in the auspicious nakshatra like Dhanishta, or someone other is born in other. But that doesn't mean that both have unequal powers. The quotient here is that they are the same parts. Vrittis are the same. So it just happens the hormonal complexes of how exactly they were portraying towards bhukti, towards mukti. Even if you say Indra and all, they were known as Asurs. The Asuri Shakti was there, then they got the quotient of Devatas, and this thing started getting interchanged depending upon what kind of literature we read, wherever we go. The quotient here is that we should not fall into no. Indra is, we have said that he could be in certain texts it is written Asur, then we got the system of Devta or whatever. Then some people who are very, attached to the Shastras will say and tear it down. So now how can you call this guy Asur, this guy? The quotient is not that. The quotient is when we look about this etymologies. A lot of time Asura call it disharmony. So these anecdotes of liquid, of something, the prashan of Amrit, the prashan of Amrit Dhara, the prashan of, Shira Ganga, the prashan of Amrit Ganga, which is continuously giving you that expansive, can neither be negated, can neither be said that its correlation with the cerebrospinal fluid is different. My point I'm trying to make is the voluntarily control. The same CSF by voluntary activation of sympathetic, parasympathetic is completely different ball game than something which can be induced by a drug or by a chemical or just by a forceful expulsion of something. Some people can do certain kind of deep meditation and go into a trance, where we'll find the same neurohormonal chemicals that we find in the yogi. But the quotient here is that yogi's cocktail is working on an all-expansive level. We are just quantifying the pathological quantification. The same thing, why I gave you the example of melatonin, because it was a lot of people who are depressive, they take melatonin supplements to get a good sleep. But when the actual study was done, the people who are more depressive, they found more, at least like 10 times, 20 times more melatonin into their system. So they said if melatonin cures depression, then why in so many depressive people melatonin is there? Because it is considered which kind of the brain, which kind of the part of the frontal temporal is active. When you're doing a lot of meditation, the alpha waves are more. When you're into light of depression, the gamma waves are more. Both secrete melatonin, both have different combinations on your pineal gland. So which states you're voluntarily going into? How much of your brain is activated? That activation comes from your stimulus in the samsara of how exactly you're looking at your relationships in terms of husband, wife, daughter, mother. How exactly on a subconscious level it is giving you an all-expansive freedom. So that only the first you are existing, nothing is existing around you. And when you start doing these practices, then these quotients become very apparent.
Just to recap it, so what you're saying is when we start taking this urdhva retas concept, right? So when we start the power that is within us, which can create a baby when it is gone outside, it has the same power that can go within us and heal us also.
The concept of healing is never physical healing. The concept of healing is the stability that even if the body is being eaten by ants, it doesn't make a difference. That power comes from the mind, because you have complete control over your nerve-mind complexes. Now what is happening, because of linearity, if I have to raise my hand, I'm raising my hand like this. You have seen that when I'm talking, most of the times I'm moving my hands. So this, when I'm talking, so this is my flow of thoughts, how I attach to my brain. Now let us say if I was in a different zone, I might not do it in a different way, depending upon where I am. What I'm trying to say here, that how information is exchanged, how my senses access my Sushumna senses, that linearity is always programmed into a brain. Once that programming is done, then you do any yogic practices, unless and until you can declutter that programming, nothing is going to happen. The concept happens is that when you declutter this programming, when you access your brain, when you talk something, and that brain and the talk, what I'm trying to say is not to convince anyone. You're just talking with yourself. You're trying to get sense of what information you're giving to others. Then what happens? You're accessing all part of the brains. In that stage, when you're meditating, it doesn't matter what physical deformities happen to you. Because see, that zone, something which I'm talking about is very inexplicable, through words. Physical healing will always come if you follow the dincharya, if you follow everything. That is the first part, to get stability of your system. The stability will only come, as I said again, the circadian rhythms. Melatonin is only secreted when it is night. So it is into the brain. Even if you come here, it is day. Because the brain is accustomed to a particular complex. It is like a dog, that an experiment was done. A dog's stomach and the brain were made with a receptor. And what used to happen, somebody used to ring a bell and they used to give food to the dog. So acid is to get secreted. After 10 days, people only rang bell and only the same amount of acid started getting secreted. There was no food. Brain becomes linear because it has to budget itself. It doesn't have that because you have not trained your body to use your resources. Everybody is getting the same resources every day, irrespective of whatever physical limitations we might have. Voluntary control over those resources, depending upon getting maximum from an action. If for me to satiate and hunger, if I know that option, of one piece of cake or one piece of food is enough, because I know that the moment my breath will change. If I'm hungry, I'll be doing like this many matras. The moment the satiation has occurred and the digestion has occurred, it will go down to that much matra. So with my breath, I'll come to know that, okay, now this is going to go into optimal digestion where minimal mala is getting created and it is going to get absorbed. So yogis internally start understanding this vasanas of hunger, thirst, carnal pleasures, whatever. Where with breath, they understand the feeling of satiation. Once that happens, then nothing is in visarga. Everything starts coming up. You get a very parasympathetic response, if I may talk in a very chemical language, to all these actions. There is no stress. There is no flight-fright response. There is no panic. And once that thing is achieved, then you go into this, whatever Brahma's cave or whatever you are talking about. You can put any analogies to it. It doesn't make much of a difference, however we put the analogy. Analogies are good to simplify concepts. Sometimes when you associate spiritual analogies with structural things, it becomes easy for you. If I talk about CSF, if I talk about Cauda equina, if I talk about subarachnoid space, if I talk about four ventricles, if I talk about circle of Willis, if I talk about pineal gland, people, it becomes a little bit easy for the Western world to imbibe these concepts. Understand that these concepts of Hatha and all were on a very different level. Sharir Shastra was known on a very different level. There were no hormones. There was no pathology. Even there was no Latin names for plants. A lot of time when we say Ashwagandha, we say Vithania somnifera. That kind of a classification was not there. People used to understand things from the guna, from the geographical locations, how they blend with. So unless and until we imbibe those concepts of being one with our topography, one with our nature, this activation of sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system doesn't occur. So that is a concept I like to share, that the pineal gland concept, the Brahma's cave concept can neither be negated nor be accepted. They're very good reference point, depending on whichever cultures they came from. But eventually associations will always happen, will keep on happening. And it's upon us to get associated with those associations or understand the knowledge behind it for application. See, I got a little bit of gist of your question, though I could not hear it. So see, the ultimate goal depends upon your concept of what absolute consciousness is. See, we start with a linear mind. As I started this talk, I said that the whole idea of human beings is to refute things which are beyond their linear thinking. If you come from a family where you have been taught that this is good, this is bad, whatever comes like that, you will refute. If I come from an atheist perspective, scientific perspective, if somebody comes and tells me there is a spirit there, I'm going to laugh at it. I'm not going to try and understand the concept of spirit. For me, either he's talking nonsense which cannot be quantified by science, but it is not necessary. Like, I'll give you a very simple example. Is that earlier time people used to say that somebody used to get possessed and fall sick. Today we know that epidemics are there, viruses are there. In earlier times people used to get infected, but because it was not known, people used to say they are going to get possessed. So certain amulets were put, certain dhupans were done to purify the system. The ambience was such that we felt that some kind of an anti-possession thing is happening. The point here why I'm trying to make that great rishis, from time immemorial, we don't know from when the oral transmission started, 10,000, 20,000, we don't know where it came. Shrishti means what? We are not here to comment on that. We are to understand that what is the prayojan. If you say prayojan is Brahma, all encompassiveness, then you and me do not exist, means these bodies do not exist. If these bodies do not exist, means what? That we start our journey with these bodies. In ours, we have all this inherent vasanas, which everything is algorithmically quantified. Nothing is random. If it is given dharma, artha, kam, it is there in everyone. Dharma is not religion. The religion is part of dharma. Dharma is what you will do appropriate without the right thing in the right situation is dharma. Artha is going behind any kind of material desires or whatever to fortify your system, because a lot of time we get gratified by wealth. A lot of time we get gratified by adulations. Third, calm is this inherent vasanas and desire to experience everything. It could be food, hunger, carnal pleasures, anything. So we understand the expressions of Maya, the expressions of life through our body. These expressions are always started in a much raw form the moment you are born. If you see a small child, if they feel very much, inquisitive about their private part, they will touch it. Small children do it. As they grow big, when we linearize them, we tell them, okay, this is not good in the society. They don't do it. But when a child is born, all vasanas are active. His hunger is active, his thirst is active, he's not bothered where he'll take a crap, where he'll do a urine, what he will do. Eventually, the mind gets linearized depending upon how we bring. That is what we call as sanskaras. So, the whole quotient is to go back to that child state, but with awareness. With complete awareness and control. Your mind is like a child. It is not associated with anyone. A child doesn't know who he's hungry, he knows where the milk is, who is the mother. But does he have that motherly bhav in the child that, she's my mom, I should be attached to her? No. He just knows that here is somewhere where I'm going to get food. Here is somewhere, so, a lot of time it is seen that if the mother is sleeping, the child is born. The records have been done that child has climbed on the mother and sucked to the breast to drink milk on its own. So those things are already, sanskaras are already there into the system because you're born in a particular yoni. Certain vasanas develop as sanskaras depending upon which era you become. And the whole concept of all the metaphysics is to understand that purest quotient. First, when nothing is manifested around you, only you are manifested. For a child, only I am manifested. He doesn't care or she doesn't care who is around, what is around. The awareness comes slowly but surely. So when you voluntarily go into that state, that is the first goal. Now, how you will go into that state? Either through tantra, either through hatha, either through meditation, either through vairagya, either through bhakti. It depends upon you. The problem occurs is that when we get too much embroiled with the process, I'm loving this meditation, I'm loving this kind of a practice, then what becomes, then you become very stagnated. So not everybody is going to develop that quotient of all encompassiveness because it is very difficult. If somebody tells you that, leave your children and just let them be on their own, you have done enough, it becomes very difficult for people to suddenly rationalize with it. You will say, do it with somebody else. Maternal things, certain associations are so strong because women are there. It becomes difficult to let go. Certain associations are very easy for women to let go. So, but the concept of this is that nothing is important. Anything that binds you to this world is a problem. So you have to go back to the state where only you understand your vasanas. You only understand the satiation. It doesn't matter how it is satiated. If a child cries, he's crying. He enjoys that cry. So he'll just keep on crying. He's not aware. If he's laughing, he'll keep on laughing. He's hungry. He's pain. What we do is that we curtail it because if you want to cry, we won't cry in people. You say, no, I don't want to look stupid. If you want to laugh at someone, you won't laugh at someone. You say, I don't want to offend someone. So you're curtailing your vasanas. And the concept here is even if you curtail the vasanas from outside, internally that quotient doesn't matter. So you should start understand to feel that immense sorrow from within. That emotion is already experienced by a jiva. But externally it might not be portrayed. You're already laughing at someone, but externally it is not portrayed. Why? Because you're enjoying the stimulus. So see, these are a little bit complicated stuff. With experience and with the help of a very good guru to whom you can surrender and slowly cut through this, it happens. So practices first give you that grounding that, okay, there is something which can transcend me. If you are a little bit strong enough to follow a dincharya and a diet to see and test your body towards vasana, because diet always comes testing you on food, on thirst, on your comfort zone. So once you can transcend hunger and thirst and your comfort, 80% of your work is done. And then only you can internalize these things. But if you get rigid with a lot of practices, no, this is my first day, I have to do this. This is my Navratri day, I have to do this. Then what happens that internal awareness goes away. The moment you take a linear decision, your hormonal complex changes. Your samadhi changes, your pratyahara changes, your dhyan changes, dharana changes, your yam and niyam change. So your asana siddhi changes. And these are very internalized concepts which slowly but surely, when you surrender to someone and they tell you whatever to do, however ridiculous it might seem, you start making sense of it. So that is how I learned in whatever small 10, 20 years, what I did. I didn't go with this concept. My concepts were different, but eventually the process was not flawed. So maybe, I got a little bit rational understanding of what needs to be done. And eventually you have to keep practicing. I always say that being in this Vedic field, I write books on whiskeys, I eat meat or something, so people will say, no man, he talks about so much knowledge, but he's drinking. So if I fear that castigation by someone, I am not growing, because I have to find my own answers. Pancham, everything is made from 5 elements. I have to find my own answers. You can say, no, you're justifying, but eventually what you think or other things never matter to me. I am on my own this, and that is what everybody has to understand.
I just have a quick one, Sumitji. There's a conspiracy theory about using fluoride. If you use fluoride, then your pineal glands and your path to spirituality is brought down. I just want to know if that's true or not.
See, as I said, chemical innervations with a lot of things and its application on the gland is something which I don't correlate with. Because we can do associations. Pineal gland as Ajna Chakra, Sahasrara Chakra. But eventually, what appeals to the intellectual mind is never the quotient in practice. If you go with the theory intellectually, it is a good way to start. I'm not saying that in today's world it is required, a little bit of understanding with concepts, of what exactly it is. But if you go too much into technicalities, then I'll say, no, I am taking mercury. But if the mercury goes bad, then it is the highest poison, right? Forget about fluoride. Mercury has been used by Siddhas time immemorial. So I don't think so this association should be made, and too much importance must be given to a particular gland when all your hormonal complexes are bad. A simple gland, you cannot concentrate on a pineal gland and say, get me in trance. What maximum you can do is to stimulate the brain to secrete melatonin and go into sleep. Or go into a sthiti like trance. Even DMT can do it. Certain drugs, if you take, can calcify your system. Arsenic, lead. But they are also medicinal. Now, if you see Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, arsenic is used to cure it in small dosages. It's one of the biggest, it's called as Mal Sindhu. Somal it is called. There's a yellow and there is a red. Now I remember it. So we use it. It's one of the best medicines for phlegm. But hydrogen, arsenic disulfide, I've documented it in my website, 1300 classical formulations on alchemy. See, those things were used to transcend the body. If you go to Siddhar, south of India, now Pashan, Sapta Pashan, in terms of gemstones and everything is used. They contain huge amounts of fluoride, all these things. So I personally feel that your body is made up of all the available elements in nano forms of whatever is found and not found in the universe. So if you understand this ionic form and can imbibe it, it's not going to cause you problem, it will enhance it. The problem here occurs is that we don't understand the difference between pure and purified. When we say Shuddha Swarna in our sciences, it is purified gold. So pure 24 karat gold still has to get purified. The term is Sendriya and Nirendriya. Nirendriya means which is not homogeneous. And Sendriya is you are converting the non-homogeneous thing into homogeneous. So Loha Bhasma is different from iron, ferrous sulfate. So that small Sendriya current was done. So when you can totally imbibe even poisons into your system, it gives you that enhancements. But you have to prepare your body for it. You cannot just say that because I'm using fluoride toothpaste or in drinking water which contains a lot of fluoride, I'm going to get a problem. Those are very, simple, like, what you do, write a book and you say, okay, I can cut my tongue and I can put inside. And maybe no, Khichdi is not, you have to prepare your body first to open up that opening. That Randra is so small, that Khechari opening is so small, even one section of the tip of your tongue only, and you will be able to suck it down. It has to go directly on the tip of the tongue down the frenulum. Even if your tongue is a little bit here and there, you are not getting the benefit. For that, you have to put the Jalandhar Bandh properly, you have to sit properly, your spine should become straight, your body should, chest should come out, your stomach. So, that position is there. Now, nobody goes into that position. You only go into practices. Because it is cut the tongue little bit, put some ghee, cut the tongue little bit, put some ghee, cut the tongue little bit, put some ghee, or some other practices. So I think people should not, people who are yogic practitioners, Hatha yogic practitioners, this tradition is far vast. This tradition does not adhere to quantitative analysis. Quantitative analysis can be good to prove. We can say, okay, this yogi, he can retain breath, so his oxygenation capacity is 20 times more than us, and therefore he is alive. It is good. But does the yogi care? He is not doing it to prove that how much oxygen I can retain. For him, the concept of pran is important. Pran is beyond oxygen and carbon dioxide. Pran is everything that you are intaking inside. It contains nitrogen, phosphorus, whatever. Can you imbibe it? Can that pran be utilized? Is important. And that is what is the difference between quantitative and qualitative sciences. Yogic sciences and this sciences. Today, to adhere to modern sciences, we are doing a lot of pilot studies, we are doing a lot of human studies to quantify, okay, it works. So for simple therapeutic purposes, like I say that if I do a Brahmari, then it increases the alpha wave and decreases the gamma wave, so it is helpful for, it is fine in that quotient, because a lot of people are stressed out, a lot of people are depressed. But are you doing this practice because you're stressed or depressed, or you want an all-encompassing experience, like somebody was asking a question? If you want an all-encompassing experience, then it has to come in a complete form. You have to take up a metaphysical concept of Brahma, of whatever it might be, Shiv Shakti, Brahma, Satkaryavad, Vivartavad, Parinamvad, whatever, Sankhya, Nyaya, Vaisheshik, whatever you believe. And you have to arrive at first through practice, to Pratyaksha, and then maybe you can go into. So everything is written down in the Shastras, Tantra Yukti, algorithmic methodologies for us to simplify our practices. But the problem occurs that we don't go into the algorithmic rhythm of the world, what we call as the order of the world. A very simple thing is called, why it is called Kali, because Kali was a very big demon. And, and no one could defeat it. And then we say Satya, Sata, and what was it? Dharma and Satya, they defeated him. They went into a gufa till the time he'll come back as Kali form, in the Kali. And again Satya and Dharma, till they come and do not fight him, the Treta Yuga, the Satyug won't be established. So very good to listen, but you have to understand this, that unless and until there is an order to the truth, you'll always be in grasp of Kali. So that order and truth has to be maintained through that Kali, the demon which is within you. We all are born into the Kali Yuga. So we can't talk about Treta Yuga or Dwapar Yuga. We don't know. So we are born in the Yuga of Kali. Kalki might come, might not come, who knows. But in that Kali, you have to find the order, the Satyam and the rhythm of everything. Only then you understand this fight. And this is very beautifully put. But what happens is that we don't understand the Gudhartha of it. We take it only as stories, only as legends. The same thing how we take these studies and practices. And therefore, I think emphasis on one pineal gland meditation is fine for people who do not have access to that literature. People who came from the Vatican, people who philosophers who found an extrasensory perceptions, who found a transful states, who understood it. Their thought process was understood in that way. They started finding parallels in Sir Woodruff's literature, in Buddhist literature. They started finding parallels in iconography of Lord Shiv or Buddhists. They have this big bump here, so it must be a cerebrospinal fluid meditation. But we we have been lucky enough and rich enough to be given in tradition this vast knowledge of pick and choose. Every household in India has a meditative practice, a upasana, if you belong to that particular religion of Sanatan Dharma, Hindu Dharma. It comes. So you can pick and choose. Our problem occurs is that we don't try to understand this from our point of view, because we have been offered it in a platter. but it becomes very easy for us to understand it from this parallel point of view. And there, actually, what happens, these things cause a calcification of pineal gland, decalcification of pineal gland, using this, using that, using nasya. And we see, wow, this must be happening. What is the quantification? We are finding a relaxing experience. We are crying. We are finding an out-of-body experience. And then say, wow, this must be that. And actually, as I said in my last lecture, anahat or om has got no resonance. It is anahat. You cannot hear it. You have to arrive at it. It is a very flat journey. But when you arrive at it, you understand that you never journeyed anywhere. You are already there. That is the beauty which has been put in. The journey becomes non-existent. And when we have got so many analogies given by so many great poets, so many people in local literature, we don't read it. We don't, put emphasis on it. And I think so time has come when these literatures, which are putting dust into certain libraries, who knows where, should be revived and should be understood because they are practical experiences. If you say in the sampradayas of Navnath, Adinath, in Maharashtra, there are a lot of sampradayas. They are practitioners. They practice a particular way of life. The bhakts of Vithoba, the bhakts of Jejuri, who are like incarnations, semi-form. Like yesterday, I was talking about the lesser tradition and the greater tradition. This lesser tradition should be studied. A problem occurs is that we become so intellectually high that we always go to the greater tradition. We want to have a very rational thinking of what the literature is. The lesser tradition is forgotten. We don't give insights into it. The yatras, the Pandari Chivari, or whatever happens. I'm talking about Maharashtra. Some people, there are a lot of people here from Maharashtra. So, because we know, this thing has got lineage, history of unbroken chain of meditative practices, which we just ignore. And those things, when we start little understanding and imbibing, these concepts become very clear.
So I think the topic is going really deeper and deeper. So I think we have to stop here. If possible, maybe we can continue this dialogue again later on. Thank you, Sumitji, for being here with us today again. And it was a big topic. And thank you for, giving us insight once again.